Tonight, a woman in her 60s crushed in her kitchen by an out-of-control car. Details live.
A cruel twist at Victoria's flood emergency. Donations destined for victims stolen from a charity centre.
Border towns on edge with record flood levels set to peak in a matter of hours.
Pensioners and families set to cash in on budget night.
The Spirit of Tasmania ditches Melbourne for Geelong.
And breaking news on Ross Lyon's top secret saintly catch-up.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Rebecca Madden and Mike Amor.
Good evening. A Sunshine North woman has been crushed by a speeding car that smashed through her kitchen.
The 60-year-old has been rushed to hospital with head injuries. Emma O'Sullivan, this must have been traumatic for the victim's family.
Mike, relatives had gathered here in Sunshine North to remember the anniversary of their late father's death. It was shortly after midday the Mercedes came crashing into the backyard. The fence backs onto McIntyre Road, then through a brick wall into the kitchen where the 60-year-old woman was cooking. She was knocked over, remarkably didn't suffer life-threatening injuries. She suffered a head injury and was taken to hospital in a stable condition. Her brother-in-law told us it could have been much worse as the car went over a gas supply main.
I heard my sister-in-law screaming from the kitchen, and then I walked in. I saw her under the wall, under all the brick and wooden the fence on top of her.
People try to beat this red light continuously, day after day after day, and it's a matter of time. Like I said, someone's going to get seriously injured here.
Police say the driver, a 37-year-old man from Flemington, tried to walk away from the scene. They arrested him nearby. He didn't suffer any injuries. Mike?
Em, thank you. Victoria's flood emergency has taken a cruel twist with detectives hunting a thief accused of stealing donations that were destined for victims.
Police say the desperate crook targeted a charity in Melbourne's north in an act of betrayal against generous Victorians.
Victoria's unfolding flood emergency is bringing out the best in human spirit.
I really appreciate it.
But also the worst. Uniting emergency relief in Broadmeadows, targeted by cruel thieves.
We have people who are in great need because of the floods. To have this happen is just absolutely devastating.
A desperate crook driving a New South Wales registered van ransacked the centre around 3 a.m. yesterday, stealing boxes of donations including gift vouchers, toys and food.
People did a bit of damage as well as take essential items from incredibly needy people. So it's a pretty ordinary thing that's happened.
Here we go. The Heartless Act comes as Flood Warrior volunteers help victims in Maribyrnong, going door to door, offering comfort.
I'm seeing blueberry red velvet choc chip.
And support.
The memories of people being washed away and destroyed, you know, as they reflect and all that, it's just really sad.
Food is also being donated to families still recovering from flooding 10 days ago.
Donations are precious things. They're given graciously by the community and received very gratefully by people in huge needs.
And here in Kerrang tonight, there is a heavy police presence. Dozens have been sent in, not so much to fight crime, rather for welfare. Officers have been going door to door, checking on residents who decided to stay, which is about 60% of the town, making sure they're doing okay and have enough supplies. There is some good news though. The water levels here have peaked. The bad news is that it will remain quite high for at least another 7 days. Mike.
Cassie Zervos in Kerrang, thank you. Echuca is now just hours away from the climax of its flood crisis. Paul Dowsley is on the Murray River, and Paul, floodwaters have almost peaked there.
Crunch time almost here, Mike. The Murray set to peak tonight and tomorrow. Already, it's at its highest since 1916. If it reaches what the council projects that it might, that will be the worst since 1870. Big downpours expected across the region up here tomorrow. And the local water authority is warning residents to tuck away 20 to 40 litres of water in containers in case the local supply becomes contaminated. Surrounded but not surrendering, residents of Echuca battle floodwaters as they hit new peaks.
If it gets in anywhere, all the houses will go under.
On the outskirts of town, a pocket of 7 houses ringed by their own sandbag levee. But as water rises, so does the risk of collapse.
It's been a constant battle with the council refusing to help out. SES literally turned us away and said we have to pack our own sandbags. They won't help, they're not coming over here, they've just basically damned us. We're gutted, we're fuming. Like it's killing us.
Residents are also frustrated by authorities contradicting each other. The Weather Bureau's predicted peak is 30 centimetres lower than one given by the local Campaspe Shire. Who do residents believe?
Well, I think if we're prepared for 95.3 and it doesn't happen, I think it's a bonus.
Do you understand though that there's some confusion with conflicting numbers?
Better to be safe than sorry.
As the water rises and overwhelms roads, residents need to be quick to move in and form lines of sandbags to protect their homes.
Yeah, well, none of this was up last night.
At Echuca Village, there's now just one road in and out. If it floods...
We're all stuck. Yeah, we all can't get in there. So...
Or out.
Yeah, in or out.
They feel abandoned too.
We haven't seen anyone from the council or anything in town, so they've pretty much said, Echuca Village, you're on your own.
So many houses surrounded by water but dry inside. The residents now just hoping the levees protecting them don't give way. So, sandbags are still being made. Supermarket bags and even pillowcases now being used to fill with sand.
I'm to the stage where I'm just about into tears and I'm not going to... The people have been fantastic. They have been so good. Everybody has been fantastic.
Leaning on each other to get through it. Residents outside Echuca's dirt levee, their houses swamped, are dirty with the council. Has anyone from the council been here to help you?
Not one. Nah, no one.
Shouldn't council be there helping? Or checking in?
Everybody's checking in on everybody. We all work together as a joint group of support agencies.
You pay your rates. Been here for 8 years. You're supposed to be part of the Shire. You would think they'd come down and maybe say something.
Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
Pensioners will be among the big winners when the Treasurer hands down the federal budget on Tuesday with a $33 billion boost. There's also cost of living relief for families with the expansion of paid parental leave.
A wall of family photos setting an appropriate backdrop for Jim Chalmers' first budget.
This will be a family-friendly budget.
Speaking to 7 News today, unveiling an extension of paid parental leave payments, increasing the income threshold from $156,000 for the primary breadwinner to a combined income of $350,000, opening increased leave from 18 to 26 weeks by 2025 to an extra 180,000 couples.
This is good for families and good for the economy because it makes it easier for people to work more and earn more if they want to.
Reforms now certain to pass through Parliament.
We very strongly support the changes that were announced by Labor today. They were announced in our last budget.
Tuesday's budget a fine balance, spending enough but not too much.
It'll be solid, it'll be sensible, it'll be suited to the times.
Promising not to feed the inflation beast through cash splashes, while still offering cost of living relief, particularly to pensioners.
$33 billion in extra funding for pensions and payments.
That indexation increase funded by a $100 billion plus tax windfall from coal and gas exports, a short-term bonus in the face of longer-term international gloom, with recession likely in the UK, US and much of Europe battering our books.
We will forecast for a slower Australian economy, particularly next year as some of those pressures collide and intensify and bite.
The budget will put a heavy emphasis on keeping election commitments, but predicts one of the main ones, real wage rises above inflation, won't happen for at least 2 years.
Labor like to tax and spend, and we'll see what surprises there might be installed for Tuesday night.
That grates with the Treasurer.
You don't like the fact that the Coalition claims to be the superior economic managers, do you?
I hate it. I think it's complete rubbish.
And promises his first budget, coming hot off the presses this afternoon, will prove that.
And Mark, Jim Chalmers says this will be a no-frills budget, but there will be some big spending.
Yeah, they'll have to be, Beck, just to keep the government's commitments, which are very big. On top of the extra $33 billion that Jim Chalmers revealed today for pensions, there'll be $20 billion plus for childcare and billions more for aged care, the NDIS, hospital funding, education, the list goes on. The challenge is to do that without sending inflation and interest rates higher. Now, first budgets do allow governments to reveal the truth about the financial situation they've inherited and then lay out their own policy priorities. Now, Jim Chalmers says he'll do that, and all through targeted spending and judicious cuts. Well, that will be quite a balancing act. Beck?
Mark Riley, thank you.
Senior Victorian MP Jala Pulford is using her family's pain to highlight record investment for children's cancer research. But parents of patients say more funding is needed to improve treatment and survival rates.
Announcing funding to benefit future generations was very personal for Medical Research Minister Jala Pulford.
I know what it's like to have a doctor say, your child has cancer.
The minister's daughter, Sinead, died from cancer at the age of 13. She shared her story, promising $35 million for research into safer therapies.
While my beautiful Sinead had a catastrophic diagnosis and her care was mostly palliative, for 75% of kids diagnosed with cancer, they will survive, but the treatments are toxic.
The Children's Cancer Foundation will tip in an extra $10 million.
It's about having more targeted therapy so that less damage to healthy cells is done.
$6 million will help survivors like Ollie Plucan. His family have supported him through 18 months of treatment for neuroblastoma.
A lot of parents travel overseas to get further treatment and research, so I think we've got all the brilliant people here. We just need to collaborate better.
Kirsty Lawton's 3-year-old Willow battled the same disease. There's a 50% chance of a relapse.
We need to be able to find different drugs and different medications that help that some of the other countries are able to do.
Childhood cancers lag behind other diseases when it comes to successful treatments. Over 4 decades, just 12 drugs have been approved for childhood cancers. Over the same period, more than 500 have been approved for adults.
I truly believe that this plan will make for lighting of more birthday candles and less memorial candles.
Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
The opposition is pledging to cut rideshare taxes if elected in November's state election. The promise is part of the party's long-term economic plan, which proposes cutting back on 7 Labor government taxes.
One of the taxes we want to abolish in the 7 is around rideshare. It's only $1, but it makes a big difference for many Victorians who are getting rideshare to and from work each week.
The Liberal Party says it will also increase the payroll tax threshold and cut the tradies tax for builders' registration.
Billionaire Gina Rinehart's under pressure to reconsider pulling her $15 million sponsorship from Netball Australia. The decision comes after player Donnell Wallam raised concerns over historic comments made by Rinehart's father, Lang Hancock.
Some of the things that were said weren't appreciated by some of the people in Hancock and Roy Hill, but now, in light of what's occurred, I just urge reconsideration. And if sponsorship could be resumed, that'd be great both for West Australian Netball and Australian Netball.
The funding hit is another blow to the cash-strapped sport.
Support is surging for Chancellor Rishi Sunak to become the next UK Prime Minister. He's reportedly been in talks with Boris Johnson, who also has his eye on his old job.
Back on British soil after a Caribbean holiday with his family, the former Prime Minister hoping to get his old job back. Boris Johnson soon in a Westminster office tower working the phone. His team claims he has the required backing of 100 MPs. But only half that number are publicly supporting him.
Boris Johnson has apologised for the mistakes that he made when he was in office, and some of my parliamentary colleagues, some of the people who called for him to resign just at the start of summer, have now gone on record to say they want Boris back.
Others accuse the Johnson camp of artificially inflating his support. Opponents say he can't return to Downing Street after being fined for law-breaking lockdown parties and accusations he lied to Parliament. He's still under investigation and is due to face questioning.
how you could be Prime Minister and give testimony and potentially face a sanction. But I haven't heard that explanation, and we have got to go forward, not go back and end up with the Groundhog Day, if you like, of Partygate again.
Good morning, Mr Sunak. Are you running for leadership?
Rishi Sunak remains the frontrunner, winning key support from senior members of the party's right wing as momentum behind the former Chancellor grows.
I worked in factories and pubs. I know about the cost of living.
Penny Mordaunt trails, but is the only one to have produced a campaign video. In London, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
Donald Trump has hit back after being ordered to testify under oath as part of an investigation into the Capitol building riots.
And they sent me a subpoena the other day. They sent me a subpoena. Think of it. These crooked people. And now, in order to make our country successful, safe, and glorious again, I will probably have to do it again.
Trump continues to use the platform to hint at another run for office.
The Spirit of Tasmania officially has a new home. The ship docked in Geelong for the first time this morning, bringing an end to almost 4 decades of history in Port Melbourne.
The Spirit of Tasmania, once the beating heart of Port Melbourne, making its maiden voyage across the Bass Strait to its new home in Geelong. The ship left Port Melbourne for the final time last night, ending an era spanning close to 4 decades. The ferry now operating from the Spirit of Tasmania Quay, a new state-of-the-art port facility.
My first one, and I'll definitely go back again.
The Spirit of Tasmania will welcome bigger vessels in 2024. Its new Victorian home fit for purpose.
There was never enough space at Melbourne for the last 10 years. This is wonderful.
It's a new chapter for both sides of the strait.
We didn't expect this, but when we booked, but we're here now.
This morning's cruise, a historic ride for all passengers, great and small. Estelle Greeping, 7 News.
Ross Lyon's return as coach of St Kilda is set to be confirmed as early as tomorrow.
Lyon spent the morning in high-level talks with club power brokers. Mitch Cleary was there, and Mitch, all roads lead to Moorabbin.
Well, Mike, 4 St Kilda officials were joined by Lyon this morning to put the finishing touches on his new contract to mark his return, his sensational return here at Moorabbin. Now, they met at the Bayside home of President Andrew Bassett at around 10 a.m. It included football director Jason Blake, CEO Simon Lethland, and incoming head of football Jeff Walsh. Bassett's so relaxed about the meeting, he even emerged barefoot. Now, today marked Lyon's 3rd meeting with Saints power brokers in just 6 days. He'll be announced officially as coach as soon as tomorrow. It's 11 years since he walked out on the club to join Fremantle. Ross, are you looking forward to coaching the Saints?
Mate, it's Sunday morning, your doorstop, you have a spell.
Can we just ask you, have you been locked in, Ross, as coach?
You know what? All good things come to those who wait.
Will you be announced tomorrow? Now, this all comes just 10 days after the board sacked coach Brett Ratton with 2 years left on his contract. Clearly, they've had Lyon in mind for some time, given he's the only candidate they've spoken to. Ross Lyon expected to sign a 3-year deal to return as coach. Mike?
Mitch never rests, even on a Sunday. Thank you. A crowd of more than 90,000 is tipped to fill the MCG tonight as cricket heavyweights India and Pakistan face off in the T20 World Cup. The game sold out in a matter of minutes when tickets went on sale earlier this year. Andrew McCormack is here with sport.
Yeah, well, Macca, the Aussies were mauled in their World Cup opener.
Yeah, they certainly were, Beck. It was ugly stuff. Their T20 World Cup defence is already on shaky ground. The Aussies touched down in Perth a short time ago, conceding their backs are well and truly up against the wall, embarrassed by the flying Kiwis at the SCG. Plus, find out why Australia's top jockey might be forced to miss the Melbourne Cup. Also, details on the boardroom battle that could get ugly at Hawthorn. Front row fans get more than they bargained for in the NBA, and we'll explain why it could be back to the future for Dan Ricciardo. He might have a home booked in the Formula One world next year. We'll have more on that.
Good news. OK. Thanks, Macca. One of the biggest music stars in the world has a beef with an Ivanhoe burger bar and he's waging a legal war. Details next on 7 News.
Also, a Doreen mum fighting cancer issues a desperate deportation plea.
An Australian in his 20s killed in a lightning strike.
And how a few grains of sand could hold the key to weight loss.
A 29-year-old's been killed after he was struck by lightning in South Australia. It's understood the victim and his brother were in their car near a private dam when a wild storm came through. He's the third person in South Australia to be killed by lightning in 10 years.
Kanye West is suing a humble burger bar in Melbourne's northeast, which originally opened as a tribute to the music idol. The business has already removed most of its original branding, but Mr West's lawyers are not backing down.
It's temporary, but it will do for now as this small business is forced to start from scratch.
That piece of artwork would go over this mural or the previous mural.
The previous mural, Kanye West. Also gone, the store's logo and burgers named in the rapper's honour after lawyers threatened legal action earlier this year.
That's how long I've been on ya. I'm not trying to do anything wrong here.
The only reference left, the restaurant's name, College Dropout, after the musician's first album, and that's staying. The owner says he was one, and burgers are now named after other celebrities who dropped out of college. But West lawyers are pushing ahead with the legal fight.
With all the references to Mr West removed, the court would be asking, is there a real chance that the ordinary consumer would see College Dropout burgers and think, oh, there's a connection with Mr West?
Do you come here for the burgers or do you come here for Kanye West?
No, the burgers definitely.
Customers left wondering how the billionaire could be so heartless.
Pretty silly.
If anything, it's a compliment to him because he's inspired people.
The owner says the entire ordeal has been disappointing and he can't understand why a major artist would sue a humble restaurant.
But it's only making them stronger.
Thank you to all the community, the people in Ivanhoe that support us.
Sarah Jones, 7 News.
A Doreen woman fighting breast cancer is pleading with the federal government to let her sister stay in the country. She's on the verge of being deported, leaving the young family in limbo.
It's been 5 years of hell for Georgina Juan. She's fighting breast cancer with the help of her 27-year-old sister Caroline, but now the federal government is threatening to send her sibling back to Malaysia.
It was a lot on emotional because I didn't have a mum. Sorry.
The pair has been inseparable since their mother died.
She was here to provide that support that I really needed for my son.
Caroline has been knocked back twice to live in Australia permanently. If she's rejected again, she'll be deported. The federal government argues she can't stay because her estranged father is still in Malaysia.
Past 5 years or so has been just me being in continuous limbo, not knowing what's going to happen. Being away from them for possibly 3 years. It's just, I can't imagine.
The local member and state government has written to the minister with no response.
I'd be confident that the Commonwealth Government would look at that case with the compassion and the consideration that it deserves.
The federal government confirmed the case is now under review by the immigration minister, and Caroline Juan won't be deported until the case is finalised.
Until then, it will be many sleepless nights for the family.
We're just waiting, we're just waiting for the worst to happen.
Kathleen O'Connor, 7 News.
Pop star Taylor Swift's new album, Midnights, has smashed Spotify's record for the most streamed album in a single 22-year-old's 10th studio album. Well, residents in Melbourne's West are crying foul over a broken transport promise. Details next on 7 News.
Also, a shock twist after a teenage girl's body was found dumped in bushland.
Italy's first female Prime Minister officially takes charge.
And why Aussie scientists say grains of sand hold the key to weight loss.
A teenager has been killed and dumped in bushland on the Sunshine Coast. A 19-year-old man believed to be her ex-boyfriend has been charged over her death.
The young lady's 18 years of age. She's got a whole life ahead of her. This is a good
young lady or a good young person, and this has happened to her. It's a tragedy.
The accused killer will front court tomorrow.
Plans for a major station redevelopment in Melbourne's west have been quietly rolled back. Sunshine will become a major stop on the new airport rail link, but locals say their suburb is being neglected.
The Andrews government promised to transform Sunshine Station into the next Southern Cross,
This is real, it is going to happen, and we will get this done.
a transport super hub with connections to V-Line services, the Metro Tunnel and the airport. But locals say the latest plan paints a different picture.
It isn't transforming Sunshine, it's taking things in the wrong direction.
According to the Airport Rail's new business case, the $13 billion project will only include limited upgrades.
They've gone with the cheapest, quickest option to get airport rail built, but it mucks up the city for the next 50 to 100 years.
The proposed concourse will be scrapped in favour of a pedestrian overpass at the opposite end of the station, away from the CBD.
We feel like we're being bulldozed. We don't feel like there's real consultation. We don't feel like we're being heard.
The Premier insists nothing has changed.
No, the Sunshine Station's going to be a hub for airport rail, a hub for the suburban rail loop, and it's receiving a massive upgrade.
The community expected a final master plan to be released several months ago, but they're still waiting. Major works are set to begin here by early next year.
Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
There have been extraordinary scenes in the final hours of China's highly choreographed Communist Party Congress, with a former president ejected midway through proceedings. The images were quickly erased from the internet in China as the current president, Xi Jinping, secured an unprecedented and many fear dangerous third term.
Meticulously stage-managed China's week-long National Congress, appearing to go off script in the final session. Former leader Hu Jintao unexpectedly escorted off stage. Stewards ushering the party stalwart away, a firm grip under his arm, overwhelming the 79-year-old's attempts to resist and his attempts to speak to the man he was seated next to, President Xi Jinping. The moment of drama after party delegates approved amendments cementing Xi as the party's core leader. A groundbreaking third term, the first since Mao's reign, giving Xi freedom to enforce his vision, outlined this week, including bolstering the size of China's military, a complete takeover of Taiwan by force if necessary, and a corruption crackdown within the Communist Party, a crackdown critics have described as a purging of political opponents and a consolidation of power in one man. In the United States, David Woywood, 7 News.
Italy's first female Prime Minister has been sworn in, giving the country its most right-wing government since World War II. 45-year-old Giorgia Meloni swept to power as part of a three-way coalition that also includes former PM Silvio Berlusconi.
Australian scientists believe they may have found a cure for obesity. They've discovered that by swallowing tiny particles of sand, patients can keep unwanted kilos at bay.
It's a nuisance when it gets in your fish and chips, but as scientists discovered, ingesting a little sand may actually be good for your waistline.
The idea is that they'll prevent the way in which fats are absorbed into the body.
Sand? Really? Just to hear that is kind of just mind-blowing.
I'm going to need a lot of sand.
University of South Australia researchers have discovered that when purified sand particles enter the body, they soak up fats and sugars, then pass them through the system without any of it entering the bloodstream.
This is huge. It's a new way in which we can tackle obesity with these really safe materials.
Which means no nasty side effects.
So the current pharmaceutical treatments lead to a lot of gastrointestinal distress, so they lead to stomach pain and diarrhoea, which is quite unpleasant for the patients.
I guess exercise is probably the best way, but yeah, it's a really attractive option.
It seems a lot easier.
I don't have to worry about going to the gym or having to do different diets or anything like that. And it's natural, it's sand.
It's a purified version of sand, so it's a lab designed sand. It's not just going to be something they eat off the beach.
Researchers now hope to turn those tiny granules into a single pill. To do that, they'll need commercial funding. Then human trials can begin.
We've proven this in the lab and in animal models. Now we want to take this to the clinic, so we have to test this in real patients to show that it's effective.
So don't toss away the treadmill just yet. Rosie Barnett, 7 News.
Up next, a shark attack survivor tells of his terrifying brush with death.
Also, an exclusive look inside a new Melbourne mega hub protecting your information from hackers.
And a safety warning for parents ahead of Halloween. There's a hidden danger lurking in homes after recent wet weather. Authorities warn mould is growing rapidly under carpets and in walls, prompting a surge in clean-up requests. Doctors say people in flood zones in particular should not hesitate to have their properties assessed.
It is quite dangerous, especially for people who may have allergic conditions or those who've got asthma or bad hay fever, skin conditions.
The Health Department urges extreme caution if people remove mould themselves.
Toys and treats are being pulled from shelves ahead of next week's Halloween celebrations. Some items don't have all of their ingredients listed on packaging, which is against the law. Authorities are also concerned about toys with button batteries.
The swallowing of button batteries can be extremely dangerous.
Safety regulators will continue to check merchandise in the lead up to Halloween.
Melbourne is now home to one of the country's biggest data hubs, fighting to protect customers from hackers. The centre stores and secures critical information for hundreds of major companies.
On land 5 times the size of the MCG, this is a fort for personal information uploaded online.
We are creating more information every 2 years than exists in all of time.
In the last month, the data of millions of Australians has been compromised after major companies were hacked.
Security is one of the biggest challenges that we face today, and protecting users' information is a critical issue.
NextDC's $1.5 billion centre protects information for hundreds of companies.
It's the home to cloud computing. If you're using Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, IBM, or consuming retail services, watching videos on Netflix or using Facebook, they need facilities like this that store and protect all of our critical information.
Demand for these secure services is soaring. Australians have lost more than $425 million to scams so far this year. That's more than in all of 2021. The Footscray Centre will continue to expand over the next decade.
The time it takes for the data to get from you into the telecommunications network and to the computer and then back to you, it's very important that the data is actually close to the user.
And further away from malicious activity. Hope Wilson, 7 News.
A father has relived the terrifying moment he escaped a shark's jaw. Robbie Peck says he feared he'd lose his arm or even worse during the attack.
Oh my God! Some of his baby girl's first steps. A shark attack very nearly stopped Robbie Peck from seeing them.
I remember just turning around, looking over my left shoulder, and all I see is just a giant mouth wide open, just a wall of teeth coming at me, full charge.
DNA tests have confirmed it was a bull shark responsible for this mauling. Robbie was spearfishing off the coast of Port Hedland in northwest WA when it attacked.
I do recall the teeth just sinking into my arm, and it was like a hot knife through butter.
Sleeping up above on the boat was Robbie's 4-year-old son James, being watched over by brother-in-law Clive.
And I've looked across and then I've seen him surface and just, the carnage.
I really just kept thinking, I don't want to die here in front of my 4-year-old son. I can't put him through that.
Robbie isn't exactly sure how fully his arm will recover, but the outlook is pretty good. He doesn't feel traumatised and hasn't seen any signs in his son James either, but the family knows that could come at any time. Whether or not he dives again isn't so simple. Rory Campbell, 7 News.
Well, Andrew McCormack returns with sport now. Andrew, going into the water anytime soon? No. An Aussie cricket great has called for change.
That's right, Beck. It comes after an embarrassing start to the World Cup. Hear what Ricky Ponting has to say next as the Aussies remaining defiant. Now no margin for error for their World Cup title defence. Also, racing royalties extra reason to celebrate with a Melbourne Cup dilemma on the cards for one. The gloves are off at Hawthorn with plans to be a powerhouse once again, and fists fly on a fiery night in the NBA. Welcome back. Cricket legend Ricky Ponting says all-rounder Cameron Green is a must inclusion for Australia to successfully salvage their T20 World Cup. A nightmare start has now left the Aussies with a huge mountain to climb.
Touching down in Perth for Tuesday's must-win clash against Sri Lanka, any recall for Cameron Green or Steve Smith remains a long shot.
We still feel as though it's the right team, no doubt.
Look, I'm pretty confident that this is the lineup that we'll go with.
A great wants Green to get a go.
I actually think he's in Australia's best team now that he's in the squad. His name's, it's starting to glow brighter and brighter by the day, the more opportunities he gets.
Power hitting paid off last night for New Zealand.
Belts it straight, long.
26 from 13 by James Neesham, boosting the Black Caps total to an imposing 200. Firing back on 5, Dave Warner shot himself.
Stumps.
Captain Aaron Finch caught by counterpart Kane Williamson for 13. Mitch Marsh making 16. Australia losing 3 wickets in the power play. The best partnership, a paltry 25, as the Kiwis got a full grip on the game.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me, Glenn Phillips.
We need to build those partnerships, and it does get easier the longer you're out there. So I think that's a responsibility of all of us.
The record loss to New Zealand means the world champs most likely must win their remaining group games, including next Friday against England.
We've performed under pressure. We know that when our back's against the wall, we can pull out the performances we want.
England beating Afghanistan by 5 wickets. Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
After claiming Cox Plate glory, jockey James McDonald is on baby watch, potentially forced to choose between the Melbourne Cup and the birth of his first child, while trainer James Cummings says we might not have seen the last of Animo this spring. Australia's best jockey has a bit on his plate this spring.
It was great to get a Cox Plate on the mantelpiece.
A baby girl due in 2 weeks with partner and fellow Group 1 winning jockey Caitlin Mallion. Last year's Melbourne Cup winner might have to ditch the mounting yard for the delivery room.
That scenario could arise, but hopefully she comes at the end of the 2 weeks. She could throw in a curveball, but we'll look forward to the Melbourne Cup first.
McDonald will get his first look at his cup ride on Tuesday. The German-trained Loft, currently second favourite.
Looking forward to that, to seeing what he feels like. Deauville Lungen looks hard to beat, but I wouldn't swap Loft for anything at this stage.
James Cummings had extra reason to celebrate his first Cox Plate win.
It was actually my youngest son's first birthday yesterday, so a Cox Plate was not a bad little gift. It is special, I rang my father last night and I said, oh well, I feel like I've won a real race.
The Cox Plate victory moves Animo's career prize money up to $9.4 million, but the real cash will come from the breeding barn. The 7-time Group 1 champion is now estimated to be valued as high as $150 million at stud. The Godolphin team weighing up a run on Stakes Day at Flemington. A return to Moonee Valley next year looks unlikely.
The prospect of travelling him overseas is extremely enticing.
To footy, and a heavyweight boardroom battle is looming as a Hawks premiership star tries to dislodge Jeff Kennett's succession plan. Andy Gowers is vying for the top seat and he has the support from a former deputy Victorian Premier.
Andy Gowers ready for a presidential showdown.
We're all keen to see the Hawks get back to where we want them to be on the field, and I think that starts with off-field stability.
The 1991 Premiership wingman was tipped off to submit paperwork only hours before Wednesday's deadline. Given the private process, it's forced a December members' vote against the Jeff Kennett-endorsed Peter Nankerville.
I found out in Paris that the nominations were about to close, so I'd already decided to put my hand up, and fair to say it was a bit of a scramble.
Football director for Hawthorn's last 2 flags, Gowers supportive of Sam Mitchell's youth policy.
Collingwood finished second last year, and almost made a grand final this year. Anything's possible. I don't want to put a lid on anything.
Former Deputy Premier James Merlino backing Gowers and vying for one of 3 vacant board seats.
Come on, Hawkers!
After 20 years in the Parliament, I've got the time and energy to devote to help the club I love in some really tough times.
Those tough times centred on allegations of racism currently before the AFL.
I just feel in recent years there's been a disconnect to its members, and it seems a disconnect to some of its players.
Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
Richmond's 7th straight win has seen them jump into the AFLW's top 4. Monique Conti starred with 3 goals in a 7-goal victory over the Giants. The Saints, meanwhile, snapped a 6-game losing streak to scrape home against Port Adelaide by just the 2 points. This courageous effort from Demon Lily Mithen has Melbourne 40 points up over Essendon and still within reach of the minor premiership. Victory star Lewis Nani has slammed the referees after last night's Melbourne derby. He gave away a penalty in the opening half. Victory captain Josh Palante was sent off in the 36th minute.
The referee can be better. This is a derby. The stadium is full. It kills the game. It kills the spectacle. We want the full stadium. We want people come to see the games.
Melbourne City jumped to the top of the A-League ladder with a 2-0 win. It was fight night in the NBA as Miami and Toronto came to blows.
Oh my, they go into the seats. Caleb Martin and Christian Okolo right in front of the Heat bench. Oh, this is not a good looking scene.
The Heat, though, were too good, winning by 3 points, much to the delight of this young fan in the stands. He's pretty happy. Daniel Ricciardo looks set to join Red Bull next year as the team's reserve driver. The Aussie limped through qualifying for the United States Grand Prix and will start from 17th. The Red Bull drivers have their own problems, booed by fans for a recent salary cap breach.
We're seeing significant issues now within our workforce. We're getting kids that are being bullied in playgrounds that are employees' children.
Carlos Sainz will start from pole. And guys, that is all for sport.
Okay, thanks, Macca. Estelle Greepink is next with the forecast. And Estelle, we've got rain on the way.
Showers and storms are headed towards us. I'll have the details next.
School crossing nightmare, understaffed and underfunded, little lives at risk.
No!
Only on 7 News at 6.
Hello again. We've had a mild day in Melbourne after just a few showers overnight, but that all changes this week with heavy rainfall to come. This is what it looked like in Lilydale today, where it reached a top of 21 degrees. In the city, it got to 20 degrees after a low of 14. Outside now, our suburbs are still sitting on the high teens. It'll still be 16 degrees at 11 o'clock tonight. Temperatures across the state today hovered around 20 degrees. Shepparton got to 25. Flooding is continuing across our north. This is what our rivers are looking like tonight. We're expecting more flood watches and warnings to be issued in the coming days as river heights increase and flooding develops. Around the nation tomorrow, Sydney's preparing for heavy showers with up to 50 millimetres of rain to fall in the city. Brisbane's looking tropical, getting into the 30s with a possible thunderstorm. Adelaide's a lot more settled, 20 degrees with just a shower or two. In our state, we'll see widespread showers that gradually ease from the west. North central parts could possibly see some severe thunderstorms with heavy falls. Closer in, our suburbs will also see showers and a possible thunderstorm. From a low of 14, we're headed for a top of 22 with up to 15 millimetres of rain. To the 7-day outlook, and we could see some showers throughout the day on Tuesday with up to 10 millimetres of rain falling in the city. Showers increase on Wednesday with rainfall most likely in the afternoon and evening. We're also expecting more wet weather on Thursday, although we should dry out later on. On Friday, we could get a shower or two, but any rain should only be light, so we should pretty much be dry by Saturday with sunshine starting to peek through. Sunday's also looking partly cloudy, but with a high chance of showers. So tomorrow, make sure you have your umbrella. We're expecting widespread rain and a possible thunderstorm. And from a low of 14, we should reach 22. So tomorrow and Tuesday are the days to look out for. After that, we should dry out. Mike?
Okay, good news. Thanks,
Thank you, Estelle. And that is 7 News for this Sunday, the 23rd of October. Thanks very much for your company.
For now, from the 7 News team, have a great night.